Hi, Wendy. No, I haven't. I got a boat up. You've been on the drink again. Hi, Derek. Good evening to you, mate. No cheek. I got a lot of that. Don't need any more. Righto. Let me just put some paint out. Paint is out. So good. Good evening, everybody, so far. There's 7 watching, but only 2 talking. So I don't know who else is on the side keeping quiet. But if you want to say hi, you'll be most welcome. And don't be shy. Right, let's put some colour out so I can paint tonight. Now, this is going to go out of view, but not to worry, because most of the mixing will be in view. Like so. That's not a normal red. An interloper. So my umber is just gone in. Good evening, Deborah. Good evening, David. Good evening to you all. So I'm just putting some colour out. So there's a very defunct burnt umber. Keep that out of the way. Then I've got some cobalt turquoise. Then I'm going to be putting in my blues, which is ultramarine blue. I'll put that down. That to one side. Cobalt blue. My other blue. That down. Then my reds are magenta, which is a great substitute in preference to alizarin crimson. And cadmium red light. All my colours are Michael Harding, great manufacturer in the UK, high quality oil paint. Now my 2 yellows are cadmium yellow deep and cadmium lemon, and for that I can make most of the yellows that I need. And my white tonight is just titanium white. I put a nice long slide of that down out of the way. And my I'm going to put in a little bit of liquid fine detail instead of the normal liquid which I use. I just got to clean that out. Glennis, good evening to you. Colleen, good evening to you. Nice that you could all join us. Tim, I didn't see that. Tim, good evening to you, sir. If you're new here, just let us know that you're there and one thing and another, and if it's your first time, where you may be from. If you don't mind, don't have to. Just nice to know who's who. Going to put a little bit of this fine detail in a small china dish, watercolor dish mainly. I'll put that to one side so I can dip into that as I need it. I have, this is Zestit, which is easily found certainly in the UK. I think it's also available in the US now. But if you do get tempted to this, which is nothing wrong with it. It's a great stuff. But just buy this one. Just buy the oil brush dilutant and brush cleaner. Do not be seduced into spending money on all these different solvents, because you can mix your own from this. You don't really need to go buying tons and tons of different ones. But that is a rather gooky substance that's in my mixing tin or my whatever. So that's what I tend to use. Right, put that lid back on the umber. This is a nice white sheet, I give you that. What I'm going to be doing is, if I can get a bit more of this paint out of this tube, not all over my hand as I've just done. Look at the state, mate, look. Right, well now I've got a very, very brown finger. Just take the rest of that out. Get rid of that. And the idea was to literally use some brushes when I find out where I put them all. I got everything else ready. I didn't get my brushes down. Soon rectify that. There we are. Brushes are ready to go. So I want to just cover this canvas very, very quickly with a reduced mix of umber over the whole thing. Like so. Good Lord. And I'm just going to tone down this canvas. That's all I'm doing. Instead of painting on a white one, I'm painting on a toned one. So I left everything like this so that you can see what I get up to and the way I do things. I don't always do this method. I did it before on a recent painting, and actually you can see how poor quality. Now this is meant to be good paper. This is oil painting paper as opposed to a panel. I don't regularly paint on it at all, but I have done a few paintings on it recently, and I have found it a really nice surface. Now this is Clairefontaine oil painting paper, and it's a good piece of kit, except I've noticed that several of the pieces do have scratch marks, digs, grazes across the surface. You're not going to see it when you finish your painting. It disappears, as I've proven before. But it would be nice to have it come out of the mill, or however it is produced, in one piece and not scratched up. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. You pay enough for these things, it would be nice to have them done properly, or finished properly. Okay, well that's that. Let's put that brush to one side. Let's clean off the surface. I don't want to have a whole lot of goopy paint hanging around that's going to cause me a problem further down the road. And while I've got this on here, what I'm going to simply do is take off the most part all of the paint that I don't really want on here. I just want to stain it. That's all I want to do. I'm going to be using a fair few pieces of this absorbent paper, kitchen roll. Just keep working it. The more you work it, the more will come off. Like so. Now, there will still be enough on here that will still have an effect upon your painting colours overall. It's safe to say that you've got brown on here, so it's going to mix and turn everything a little warmer or have an effect upon it, whatever colour you use. But what I wanted was merely to have a nice tone in my paper. Now, this idea is just putting on a very, very flat colour, lots of fluid into that colour in the form of zesty. And good evening Keith, and Ben, good evening to you too. So yeah, it's a great way that if you're in the field and you haven't had the time to pre-colour a canvas, or indeed if you're not using a natural canvas and you do not desire to paint off of a white ground, then this is a very quick in the field remedy to have a situation. And indeed, I will say that what you can do, and I will do it just in one corner just to show you, but if you're drawing away with your colours, you can actually quite happily use some material and use wiping off methods. You can wipe back. So you could put darks on, and you could use a rag with some spirit on it of some sort, some solvent, brush remover, whatever it is you use, and then you can actually rub further away and create highlights using this method, which is a great way of doing things. There are lots of artists out there that use the wipe back or wipe back method. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's a very well recognized way of doing things. Okay, one yacht. Now, I did choose this one over the same boat with a different set of light on it because I wanted to do one that was Conte-jour. So those of you who saw me at the very start of this stream saw me holding a ruler, and I'm using it merely to give myself a few angles. I can't hold this right, but if you put the angle of the picture that you're painting from down, and you can put a rule on it, and then you can transfer from the picture. I can't show you directly, but you can then put that down onto your paper, and then you can get your line. You can also use a rule in this way, a transparent rule, that you can actually put a measurement on the boat at a certain distance away from you so that you can see it, and then you can actually work out the dimensions. So I did that at a certain length, and I worked out that whatever I had here, say for instance it was 3 centimeters long as a whole, then the main mast would have to be 5.5 centimeters roughly, give or take. It just gives you some idea. Oh, what was that? Something just come in. Ken, good evening. Well, good morning to you, sir. Good of you to join us. Thanks very much. Good to have you on board. And John, good evening to you. Okay, mate, we'll catch up soon. I did enjoy the old booth that you made today. That was pretty good going. Catch you soon, my friend. Alrighty. Okay, so let us carry on. I'm going to use a smaller round brush. Well, this is actually meant to be a flat, but it's been pretty much hammered by me, gotta say. So I'm just going to use a little bit of heavier umber. So not too much fluid. That was a little bit too much fluid kicking around there. So let's take that out. Let's clean the brush, come back with a little bit more paint but less fluid. And let's just suggest where we want our horizon line. We don't want it too much higher than the boat is going to be, but we do need to have this way up into the sky here, so we've got a nice line of hills in the distance. So let's just put a horizon line just as a rough idea through here, just giving ourselves a bit of a straight edge so that we know pretty much. And if you want to be really accurate, I bet you I show myself up now. That says 5, that end. And, well, there you go. It's a gnat's whisker out, but we're almost level, which is good. It does help. But our boat is somewhere down here. And to that end, I want to suggest in the same way as I did with the boat that I did in watercolor a week or so back, or last week, or whenever it was, I suggested the stern to start with. And I wanted to do the same sort of boat. This is a gaff rig boat, I believe they call that. And I wanted to do the same sort of thing, though, with this boat as I did with the watercolor boat, to give you some idea of how I did the white water in one medium, and of course the white water in oil as a medium. I'm going to put the top of that there. It's a middle cabin affair. It's a little bit of, I don't know quite, these are replicas. I think this is a replica vessel. I can't even say it now. A replica wooden vessel of an earlier type. And there are several of these that go around, and they sort of do all the races along with the great big Thames barges. And yeah, they're really good. Now then, let's just see where this one is. So, working on my theory of about 6 centimeters long, it should be about 11 centimeters at a certain angle like so, and that will come down in the forward part. So if I go somewhere like that, there's roughly Now, is it in the right angle? I'm just going to check it up, and I'm going to put my brush on there. I think it actually could come back a little bit this way. So there we go. Take some of that off. Give ourselves a very, very rough or very, very crude indication of not only the angle but also the height that we should end up with our sails and our mast. And so far down we can come in, and again, if you want to use the rule as a guide, as an angle, I'm going off my eye. I think that could be a little lower, so my eye's not doing too good. And we'll come in with a very untidy little topsail, and then we've got the gaff rig, or that jib, or whatever, I don't know what they call it actually. I'm not great. I must confess, I am not a sailor. I paint a lot of boats, but I am not a sailor. Put that part out through there. And let's look at that nice sail coming down through here. And get the drawing right. Take your time. There's no race, there's no rush, and there's no prize for coming in first and getting it done quicker. It takes as long as it takes. Now this has got a spit on the front like so, and they don't actually go up. When you see the line of the boat, you always think that these poles go out like that. In fact, they actually come down like that. They drop a little bit. They've got a funny look to them in that sense. Now the top of this has got one of those, I don't know what they call those, little bits of cross bits on the cross piece. Let's call it a cross piece on the top of the sail, or on the mast. Let's kind of bring that down through there. That's one of the four masts. I'm assuming that, can't quite see, it looks as though there are two, but I'm sure that's not the case. I just think it's the way the light may be catching it, but I'm just gonna tread carefully, come up here now, and this one just comes over the top like that there. I don't know if they're, it's almost as though they've just lost the wind on this point, or they've just, well, lost the wind and coming round on attack, maybe, because there's not much of that. It's not in full sail there. There's a lot of sort of background, as it were, to be seen through. Now there is a sail, or there is a boat behind, right behind here. I'm not going to put it there. I'm going to move it. I'm going to put it there. And I'm going to put the sail up through there. So there's another vessel that's tacking along the coast. And this again is off of Sheppey, and like the one that I did last week. So we've got a little bit there and some foreshore fills, or whatever they might be. The immediate ground. And you remember from the watercolour how that sort of changed to that lovely warm colour. Well, you can see hopefully in this photo what's happening with that. Now then, let's just check on this. Was the background just oil paint and water? Not oil paint and water, oil paint and zestit. Whatever this stuff, whatever you use as a dilutant, this, in this case, this is zestit, which is still a solvent, but it's not as harmful as many. Although, is there such a thing as a non-harmful solvent? I don't know. But if you're America, then you can get things like the the odorless thinners. I forget the name of them. Somebody will know it in this group, I'm sure. But there are many brands out there, and you mix the solvent with the oil, make a very sloshy solution with it, put that on, and then wipe it all the way back, as you saw. Just checking everything on here. I hope I haven't missed anybody. All right, let's carry on. So now that angle, I think, should be up a little steeper. So I'm going to give that a little bit more. And this is the nice thing about the oil, that you can play around with your drawing, even during the course of painting. Now that sail that comes down here almost comes to the top there, but it also comes across the top of that mast, just about there. So the mast disappears. There's a bit of a shadow, but it does disappear. And then of course we've got lots of lines, which I'm just going to suggest them later. I'm not too worried about them now. I think the bow comes up a little steeper than I have it, so I'm going to take that through there, just give that a bit of dark under there, which is the other side of the bow. There's a bit of light, perhaps not that high. We'll check on that later on, and just keep an eye on what's going on with that. And then of course you've got the back. Take that through like so. And I'm altering my drawing. I'm checking it and altering it as I see it. So that will come up, give that nice dark area in there. Then we can come up from our dark and we can pump in some of our lights as we need them. But to start with, we've got our dark, we've got the rudder coming down through like so. Very, very dark accent on this vessel. Anyway, I know the vessel, I've painted it before. I actually painted it when it was under full steam out on the, what they call the Spaniard Boy. And it's a lovely vessel, and that's why I know it's a reproduction vessel. But it is a labour of love for a group of people. But it's a nice vessel. Right, there's just that in. Let's come back. Let's put in our distant line of hills that run through here. Probably about midway through there. I think our drawing is not so bad in terms of scale, where this is and where this ends up. Although I do tend to think that that wants to go up a little bit more. I think that's quite steep. That wants to come up. And therefore that needs to come up a little higher, up in here, to that sort of area. This sail will come up and be a little thinner, a little bit more gaunt. Now I think we're probably in the ballpark. Just going to check where that comes out, just above there, so we'll bring that down like so. And yeah, I think that should be out a little further, and I'm just altering my drawing as I see it. I put it in, I look at it, I change what I feel is needed. But I can make some alterations with further on. Okay, so let's just punch in some sky now. This is where you see that if this was white paper, you would have brilliant whites and lights, because obviously they're unaffected by any other pigment. This is already going to affect the pigment. If I was to use a piece of white canvas next to this and put the white on and the white on this, you'd immediately see the difference. But when it's an overall design, it really doesn't pick up in the same way, so don't worry too much about it. Clean my brush, go back to get rid of all that stuff that was on it before. Keep it nice and clean. When you're using any spirit, especially an oil-based solvent such as Zestit, is to make sure you do clean the root. I don't mean scrub the brush and get all everywhere. I mean gently tease all the oil out, because what happens with oil, it will sit in the filaments right down here somewhere, and as you're painting away, it will travel back down the filaments of the brush and join the paint you're using and make a big splodgy horrible mess, which is something you don't really want to do. Okay, so let's start on. Let's put some whites in, shall we? Let's go in with some nice bright colours, but let's start off with a bit of blue and a little bit of cadmium red light, just to take it to a violet, but a dirty violet. Okay, so let's just put in some clouds and some sky. I'm looking closely at it, and it's a very, very soft sky. It was nice in the afternoon. One thing I will say, I'm going to put a little bit of the liquid, which is fine detail liquid, so it will move a lot more so than wrong color red. It will move more than the other liquids, which are stiffer by default. Of course, this is the most sort of, I don't know what the word is, sort of more free to move. One of those evenings tonight, I think. Anyway, there we go. Right. So I hope all of you have had a great weekend. Mine is still happening in a way. I have my, because I work Saturdays, I have my weekend Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. And I enjoy that and have a lot of fun, and I play my hobbies, and I get on with a bit of filming, bit of painting, filming for my Patreon and filming for next week's YouTube, and that will happen tomorrow. And yeah, it's all good. Right, I'm just bringing this on, and it's a little bit, I can make it a little bit more green in there actually. I'm going to use some of that cobalt turquoise as that comes down here towards those hills. Still quite light, I don't want it too heavy. I need to get this in as fast as I possibly can, really, so that I can move on to the vessel itself. Now I am looking at some of these shapes that I've created, so I'm going to come back in and redefine the shapes of the sails using the negative space of the sky behind it. So we create the negative space and redraw any mistakes that we feel we may have. So I felt that that just needed a little bit of a tweaking, and take that all the way out through there. I'm not worried about that little spar that comes out. We can put that back in, or if we are able, like that, we can pretty much keep it in play. Now I'm holding my brush quite low down because of the angle and the closeness to the desk. I can't really hold the brush at great distance. My arm would ache after a very short period of time. So unfortunately, but if I was working in my studio elsewhere, I would have my easel and I would be standing up, and as opposed to sitting down, and I would be looking at holding the brush much further away from the ferrule, because it's just a nicer way of doing things. Gives yourself a little space from the painting itself. I'm going to come in, I'm putting a little bit more of this nice late afternoon cobalt turquoise into my painting. Now what I will add is that the colour underneath is having an effect on all the colours, not just the white of course, but some of it, some of the areas I've painted are not actually fully covered, and some of them just leave little bits of the underpainting, the umber, that lovely golden colour. Now you can see how gold and brown that looks against some of these cooler colours. Don't need that anymore, let's get rid of that. By doing that, you create harmonies that you were not actually aware of. By having little pops of the colour coming through the overall painting, then you get these lovely little suggested harmonies. Now you don't necessarily see them, but as a viewer, somebody may well be attracted to your painting and they don't actually know why, and it could be simply the fact that you've got a darn good painting. Ha! We all like that. No, on a serious note, it could well be just simply that you've got beautiful harmonies working through some method like this. It's like when you are painting with a smaller palette, with a lesser, with a few colours in your work, in your armory as it were, then you can literally use most of those colours in all the colours you create. There's got to be some of those colours in that mix, and therefore you create another harmony. I put in a bit more of that green and a bit more of the blue and a bit more of the red, just to come back to other places up through here, creating a little bit more pigment to continue. We're going to start bringing out some lovely whites in a moment and really start pumping out the sky. Give a suggestion up there of one already. A red into our cobalt and a little bit of green in there. I love this green. It really does work very, very well. It just pushes the whole thing away from the pure blue, and it's quite well suggested. My sky is very different to my photograph, but I'm quite happy for that to be so. The colour is based upon Conte-jour. So when you look into the light of Conte-jour, which is exactly what it means, is looking, you know, painting into the light, painting toward the light, then naturally everything becomes less colorful, because the intensity of light at that point literally bleaches color. You can go around and look into the sun, and if you look away from the sun, you have tons and tons of color. And if you turn to the sun, then those same items become more and more silhouetted, because the contrast is increased between the two, and therefore the color or the chroma is reduced. And Deborah, can you use pastels and go over the top of this type of background, and can you use oils on watercolor paper? Two questions, two good questions. Okay, there are only guidelines in painting, Deborah. No, one or two things, physical rules like oil and water don't mix, but everything else in art is really there to be questioned. And I think that what you've got to say is that, can you use pastels over this surface? You could, if you had waited for it to dry, so it has to be dry, and of course that the paper you're using your pastels on, assuming you're talking about chalk pastels, would have to have a tooth, but so too would oil pastels need to have a bit of a tooth. But yes, you could also use oil pastels straight onto the surface, but it does need to dry a little bit. As to the background using oils on watercolor paper, not really. You'd have to first take the watercolor paper and put a gesso compound onto that, which would be an acrylic gesso, something like that, that would seal the paper. So therefore any benefits of being watercolor paper are long lost. You may as well use a piece of cartridge paper and gesso that and do the same thing. Indeed, many artists do little footnotes of oil painting into their sketchbook journals, but first they prepare the paper by putting a little gesso over the top of it, let that dry with a hairdryer or however they do it, as fast as you like, and then they can start applying oil on top of that. I hope that answers that question for you. If not, come back and I'll talk about it some more. Right, now I'm going to leave that area. I'm just going to clean the brush off. I'm going to put some pure white down here, which I think you can see. Tap in just the merest tap of lemon to that. And yeah, I'm going to keep it at lemon now. And I'm going to put a little bit of cad light into it, cad deep into it as well. Now the little bit of yellow into our whites, it was shown by Turner, who showed us that by adding a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow to our whites really excites the lightness of a color. And as you can see here, just by putting this on quite liberally and quite openly, I can define any edges further on. Try, if you can, not to work your paint too much at this stage. Try and keep your colors separated, because the more you work them together with other colors, the more you're going to pick up the color underneath, and it just wants to mix down with whatever you're working with. So try and remember that. I'm just putting several colors. I'm not necessarily following the photograph anymore. I'm merely adding little touches here and there. A little bit of yellow in there, a little bit of cadmium yellow. That's got a little bit contaminated. I'm just putting this. I will refine it. This is merely the first go over. Putting a little bit more oil into some of this. Now, I'm looking at the way that this painting is sinking around a little bit with the colours, and I'm all painfully aware that there may be, possibly maybe, a bit of a sizing problem. This is a brand new pad of this stuff, but I can't complain too much. I've had this pad for more years than I can count, and I've never used it. It's just been sat on a shelf. And if the sizing's gone off, I can see, if I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's little almost drying marks where some parts are sinking more than others. I'm hoping it's not going to cause a problem. If it is, then this will be an exercise for you and no more. If it's not, then hopefully we can continue this through to a successful conclusion as a painting, and then it can go on sale. But unless it's correct, unless the colours are working properly, then I won't be able to do that. Now I'm going to start blending some of these shapes in. Don't overwork them. If you do too much, then you lose the benefit of your beautiful whites. So I'm just literally putting little taps in and becoming quite suggestive with the marks. Leave that there, let that nice hard shape up against there. I can take this all the way up here. I think you can use acrylic. Yeah, you can. You can use acrylic gesso on paper. But what I was saying earlier, David, that you can't use pure watercolor paper. What happens is that the surface sizing on the paper is not able to take the oil, and what will happen is the oil will separate and bleed out through the paper fibers, giving you staining beyond your color. It will not take it, I assure you. You do have to prepare paper, and indeed if you had no gesso, you could even in fact use candle wax. If you burnish candle wax over a piece of paper, clear candle wax of course, you will in fact do the same thing as using a beeswax in oil, which has been done too, and create a lovely surface of which to paint on. You do find that the wax does make it quite stiff to move the paint over. Sometimes you do need to have a little bit more sort of spirit or something in there to make it move. So anyway, yeah, hopefully that sorts that little bit out. One or two nice light taps in here. Quite heavy lumps of paint because I'm just making statements of light clouds. And I'm trying to make them quite loose or sort of very punchy statements of light. Taking some through here lower. Changing some of these values here. Just looking at where other shapes are. A bit more of the yellows to show. Like so. And take some of that up there. Take it all the way through that area there. And I'm going to come back in with some more of that green and just push that in a little bit lighter but a little greener along that bottom. So this is the nice thing about the oils, that if you judge your values, you can always alter the choices that you make further on. You can come back in and change them. You can do it to a point with most mediums, including watercolor. But watercolor is so much less forgiving, and it will cause you and bite you hard if you get decisions wrong. I think that's a nicer lower portion to the sky. Picked up a little bit of red in there, that's not a problem. Take that all the way through to the bottom again, to the hilltop. Maybe a bit more green. don't sometimes think of using a green quite openly into a sky, but you can do an awful lot by just playing around with some of these color choices that you have. I'm just taking and lightening up some of these nice shapes. Making the shapes more cloud-like now in many regards. Okay, and looking at some of those greens up in here, not too many, because we've got our nice warm colours, so I'm just going to put one or two in there. And of course, because I've got lovely violets in some of this cloud, the greens work as a lovely complementary. That's just a little too green. That was me being a little sloppy. Not a problem, mate. Not a problem. Let's come back in with a bit of that warmth just to nip it in the bud with that green. Now what I did there, I had too much green, so what did I do? I added its complementary to kill it. And that's an ideal way to get yourself out of trouble. If you put too much of, say, blue on, too intense, you can knock that blue back by putting some orange of some description into that and creating a different value of the green. It's just a case of knowing what color to put in to mix it up and take it away. Right, I need to, another message coming in. I'm going to come back in with some more highlights now. I do or may need to sort of quit the sky in a moment, or else we're not going to get time to paint what we're here to paint, which is the boat. Essentially the boat, but it's more about the boat. It's less about the boat. It's more about the water. That's what I wanted to show you, is the water. I'm going to take that cloud all the way through there now. Change the shape of that cloud. Give that a bit more form. Taking it up into there a little bit. And shape that one slightly differently. Okay, I'm going to leave that as it is at the moment. It can take a lot more work upon it. It's very, very crude in some ways. But I think we are okay to, even if it wasn't attended to at the end, it doesn't matter. The statements are there, and it does work quite nicely from that point of view. So I'm just literally playing around with one or two more shapes and forms, and then we'll move on to another part of the painting. And we'll start looking at the vessel. Putting a bit more yellow in one or two of these whites. A little bit of the cadmium yellow deep. Touch of the lemon, not too much of the lemon. Take that all the way into there, because I only want a little bit of that mask to show up through the top there. So I'm taking that right the way in. When you do come up with a colour that you are coming into a shape or a form, then go right up to it. Don't go so far and then come down this way down the sail. You'll leave a brush mark that just doesn't work. It just looks like you've stuck it on, and it just doesn't work, even to the point where you can come over the edge like so, just to make sure you've taken it in that line right up to the appropriate edge of the vessel. I hope that was as clear as mud. Probably it was. Just putting one or two suggestive marks in here as clouds. I think this area needs to be worked a little more. Maybe a little more lights and darks coming in. It's got a bit heavy. It looked a bit sort of rain cloudy, and it wasn't anything like that on the day. So I'm just going to mix it up a bit, and I can come in a little later with some other light colours just to break that area out a little bit more. Same here, it's a little bit on the heavy side. First choices needed to be corrected just a bit. Taking those out and refining. You can keep on changing your idea like this and keep developing the picture. Just because you put a colour down doesn't mean to say that at some point, because it doesn't work any longer, that you can't come back in and change that. You can do so. Have I missed anything? No, I think I'm up to date with the chat. Okay, now we're going to come in with a little bit more blue and a little bit of magenta this time. And I'm going to come in with 2 blues I actually used. I'm going to come in with some of the green too. And although I want a nice violet, I want to kill some of that violet off with a bit of my green, and that will work. Now I'm actually going to do a little bit more than that. Just take it down a stage further and make it a little lighter, because I want that hillside. And I'm just going to come in with even more of the green. So I'm checking it out now. Looking at the value difference, it needs to be darker. So I'm going to put a little bit of the umber and some more green in. So I've pretty much come right away from the initial blue and violet colour. I'm putting in cobalt now to sharpen up the umber and the greens. Now that's probably a little better at where I wanted it to be. So I'm just coming in, tapping it all the way down so far towards the shoreline, but it does get a bit darker down here. So I'm going to come in this time with some cobalt and some green and some of the umber. Tap of cad red light too. Looking at what I've got to achieve with that, and just going to test that out along there. It's a bit strong, needs taking out of itself a bit. So I've got a greeny blue, so I'm going to come in with a bit of red to take that back a little bit, cool it down. And all these colours, when you do a colour like this, don't put a bit of colour into all of that, because you need so much colour to change that a little bit, all that amount. All you do is take a little bit off to one side, and then you have still got these 2 colours to play with should you need to go back in and remix and do something. But indeed you've used very little of another colour to alter just one part, and now I've got several colours that I can work with. So now let's just change that colour out. Let's take the pressure off of that blue, put that into there. I've lost my little boat to one side, not a problem. I will redefine that later. I'm just coming in here and putting in that colour value against there, and all the way through here. A little bit lighter through the back end of this. Let's just take that through there. Like that. That's an initial colour, really. It just tells me somewhere where I need to take it. And I'm going to come in here, take this colour value all the way through. Come back to some of that darker stuff down near the bottom here, and take that all the way up to the top and off to the end of the picture. And we have our distant hill line pretty much sorted. We will make 1 or 2 other changes to it, but essentially it's there. So what we can now do is we can come in with that lovely golden colour, and I am still using the same brush, so it's not a problem. Oh, okay, no, Deborah, that's fine. That's why you're watching, I hope, and to learn. Now Okay, so oil painting itself is a big difference as an animal compared to watercolor or acrylic, come to that. Although there are one or two things in acrylic that do translate very well into oil, but certainly watercolor is a very different animal. The Zest-It I'm using is merely to clean my brushes out. So when I finish with the color mix, I'm sloshing out, cleaning out my brush, ready for the next mix. Sometimes if I want a bit more fluidity into my painting, or I'm using fine detail and I want to put in something that will come off the brush a bit easier, something that comes off maybe a rigger a little easier, then I will dive into some Zest-It, mix that with my color, and it will come off a little easier off the brush. But essentially it's a way of cleaning your brush and keeping it in a pot, and you don't have it and throw it away. It's too expensive just to use once and throw away. You do with Zest-It and like gambling and all these other oils and stuff that you can use, you tend to decant them after a little while into other pots and jars, let the heavy particulates settle down, then pour off the good stuff again and carry on using it. And that is a very efficient way of using something like Zest-It. Okay, I'm just going through here with the horizon line. Now this is my horizon line on here, and I'm just isolating the boat with all these lovely bright whites, this yellow whites that I'm putting in right now, which are my brightest marks that I can possibly put in. This is my shoreline, like so, at the back of the boat, coming down the side of the boat. I don't want to come down all the way. I only want to come so far down. I'm going to use that there. There are one or two taps there and in here, which I will have to work on. And a little bit there, take that down. So I've got that gaff off the front, and then back up to there, which is, I need to make that very much more slender. So I'm going to come in and work that probably with a smaller brush further on, because it's going to get a little bit dirty. I don't want that. So I'm just going to see if I can tidy that up first. Take that all the way through there, all the way through there. Nice line of paint along my well, it's the shoreline, but it's my horizon line. So there we go. That was the line that we first put into play, and that is my guide for the rest of the painting in terms of the structure and the lights and the levels of the way things are placed. My horizon line. There we are. Hopefully I've got that about straight as well. But now I've got that little bit of middle bit, and I'm going to come in now with a slightly smaller brush just to take that section out of the equation and get it finished off. For that I'm using predominantly an orange colour, so it's a little bit of cadmium yellow deep and a little bit of the light cadmium red. Just going to try and play, and it's a bit strong. So we've got an orange now. So what am I going to do to kill this orange off? What I'm going to do is add a little bit of the blue in. Turns it to a little greenish colour, but it's not so bad. What it will do though, and I can put a little bit of white to it too actually. Now we have killed the chroma. We have isolated that, and we've taken that nice colour out of it. A little bit more yellow to one side. That's a bit too strong. Just going to put a little bit of highlight on this end of the sand. Let that run all the way through like so. Doesn't matter that it's blending with the blue. Just don't let it go too far, else you'll end up with a horrible green colour, which you may or may not want, depending. Taking that all the way through there. Just checking my levels. I do think I need to put a bit more water on this side, but not a big deal. Now the umber on the ground is very, very similar colour to that of the sand, but once all this is sorted out, hopefully it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Just want to check that level through there. is about where I want it to be. Okay, come back. We'll be using that brush a lot more, and I'm going to bring that light down onto that part of the boat there, just suggesting that cabin, and down through the front and get the shape of the front of the boat. Now you can see I'm putting a little bit more light into play here, but I am not going to go any further than that right now. What I do want to do is come down with a bit of blue into that yellow that I was using, that yellow orange, and just see how dark so that's way too light. So okay, we'll come out of there. We're going to mix up a little bit of cobalt again, bit of umber, so making a dirty old yellowish blue, touch of the green in there, and if we need any more, we've got to be careful. We put a little bit of lemon, but not much. Lemon will cool it, but it'll also lighten it, so just watch that. But hopefully we've got a bit of a, I don't want that to happen. Maybe I will just change down to a smaller brush that just gives me a bit more control over where I want some of these shrubs and bushes that are distant. And they are great big trees if you stood next to them, but they are merely little taps of colour from this distance. So I'm just going to put those in along the shoreline here. They go up there as a side of a field. Maybe a little darker. Where are we? And a little bit more dark in one or two areas through here as the shapes go on up the hill and into some along the top there. Now there are all sorts of shapes beyond. There is a secondary line of hill through here, which I do want to put that in. I can just see it now, so I'm just going to suggest that coming through. And it rises back up again, I think. Trying to see, there's quite hard to see some of the shapes and the forms from here. Of course, if you were doing this plein air, you would have to do the background, but you would be very hard to put all the details of the vessel in, making too much sense of it. But of course, you could put that in later, or you could indeed take a snapshot as I did at the time to do it later, or you could put a very quick study of the vessel in place, and that would work too. Put a little bit of red into some of this mix with more green, so the red and the green start to neutralize each other, but gives me a bit of a darker trees to go in through the back here on the hill of the beach, or I don't know what they are, hill, beach, whatever it is. But yes, that red and the green mixed together make a very, very good thing. And through the back here you can just start seeing some of the groins that are protecting the beach at that point. I'll put a few of them in there, and they are identifiable because they've got little upright posts that are just for my purposes minute taps, but enough for the eye to see exactly what they are. Way back up there, one or two, just a suggestion. And let's continue some darks along here. Let's just reinforce some of these along the top of this water line, and it's because you've got the dark here against the light of the water, there is a huge jump on contrast at this point, and that you need to look for and keep a hold of. You don't want that blending. You would like to keep a nice hard line if possible. Just come up here, continue this idea through there, and there's a line of stuff through the back here too. I'll put something of that in. And there's a little darkness there right on the shoreline. I don't think it's any more than just a play of light, but it just sends the idea that there's a little deepening of the sand or whatever it is near the shore at that point, and through there too, and through here. But it's just a subtle drag of the brush just to indicate a different pigment at that point. Now there are all sorts of things man-made out there which I do not intend to try and replicate, such as pylons and things. I'm not interested in that. I'm just going to put in one or two suggested trees and stuff that's going along the top of the hill, like so. Quite loosely observed and loosely put in. Just mixing it up a little bit and giving you ideas that change some of the pigments instead of it being just one overall pigment. A few taps here and there that tell the brain that there is something more on the skyline, as it were, little trees, little buildings, maybe a little tower of some sort. Just little taps, little divots with the brush, and just mixes it up enough. Okay, the idea of this is to keep this as dark as you possibly can keep it, and the water as well, which means that when you do put this light water on, it really just pump. And I'm going to put in a long line of sort of shadow. What's causing it? It could be many things. Through there. There's a second one, very close to it, almost like tram lines. Comes into the front there, and then they sort of go on out the back, dissipating in intensity on there. Right, we'll leave that like that for the moment. Let's come back into our boat. Now, as I did with the watercolour, the sails are white sails and red sails. But to look at the photograph, you wouldn't actually see that. You know, you can't see that in this photograph. You can see blues, greens, and pinks. You can see dark colours, dark browns, very warm but dark all the same. And that's the effect of Conte-jour, because it's, you know, if I could show you, and I can't at the moment, I could show you another photograph of this boat from a slightly different angle where the light's hitting it, where it may have turned. The sails are in full red brick colour and the sails are magnificent white, but all that light in the sea gone, dead flat. And I nearly used that picture but decided it just wasn't interesting enough. And this is, to me, so much more interesting. I'm going to have a little glug. Right, let's carry on. Now I'm going to put in a very similar colour to these colours here in the top of the sail. I'm going to put it right up there, start bringing it down. Being very careful not to go anywhere I don't want to put it, as it were. Can I come in with a bit more blue, a bit more cobalt, take and mix off to one side, just to lighten up some of that there. And then I'm going to come in with some lights into there and work that backwards. Nice bit of light into the base of the sail, like so. Now I will play around with extra highlights. This is just to get a feel for the actual colour of the sail. This is a white sail I'm painting, would you believe? It's anything but white. And yet it is, in reality, a white piece of canvas. Okay, leave that for the moment. Check out what we're doing. Clean my brush. I use very similar colours down here, but I want to come in with some umber and some red, and let's look at that colour. And to that I'm going to put some ultramarine blue into that mix. You wouldn't think that would make a deeper brown, but it would. There we go, a very deep darkish colour. And I'm going to take that all the way up there to the edge of that sail, which is very strongly marked against the edge. Now I'm going to come in and work in across your image, or what you're seeing. So I need to keep that nice and sharp, and I'm almost losing it a little bit. taking that as a nice confident stroke down, like so. Now it can be repaired on either one way or the other, but if you don't do it wrong in the first place, then there's very little or anything to worry about repairing. So try, if you can, to be correct with your mark, and it will pay dividends. I'm going to put a little tap in beyond there as that pole for that mast, just in there, and I'm using the edge of the brush for that, taking that all the way down through to there, down the side of this mast. Now you can't quite see, there's a little bit of a blur there which I wish I hadn't made, but I have made it. I'm going to put a little bit of light in there where the sails just come away a little bit from the mast itself. I'm going to put a darker mark in, which is going to be umber and brown, no red, and take that mast down through there, like so. Maybe a touch more umber, that got a little bit too blue in there. Take that umber down. Okay. What I have actually forgotten to do, I think, yeah, I can see I've forgotten to do some of that cloud and sky through there. Now that's very good reason to keep colours and don't lose them, don't mix them out. So I'm trying to mix down some of that sky colour to there. That's a little closer. Get rid of that bit, take that out of it, come back in there to there. That's okay. I'm going to bring that nice and billowy, because that goes on above. I think I redrew that if my memory serves. So let's take that out all the way. Don't overwork it, because you will make a mistake and it will start picking up colours you don't want it to. Come back in with some of our hill colour, which is in there, which I need a little bit of blue, a little bit of the violet colour, just to come back in here with that colour of the hill. Now I can treat that with some greens and take it back a little bit. That's a bit too much. Test it against your other colour. Teach me to pay a bit more attention to some of the colour mixing, and not only that, but the actual drawing itself. Now gives me a chance to straighten up that pole of the mast as that comes down. A bit lighter up there. Put some of that through there so you don't see too much of a difference, like so. Marry the two areas together, a little bit of blue, a little bit of the umber, just to deepen this down into this lower pocket of the second line of hill about there, and then into what will be our sand. Now I've drawn that front sail and we've got that picked back up again, but there is also a little bit of light that I wanted to put in just about the little line of it, like so. It's just where that sail is parting from the mast on that point. Alright, now Sean, good evening to you, Sean. Little late, but not a problem, mate. Not a problem at all. Okay, so back to the boat. Is quite dark, but it is quite a greenish colour. In real light, it's a real light, but in light that is unaffected by light play, it's quite a very pale green colour. It's a lovely coloured boat, but in this picture, of course, it's anything but that colour. So we're going to put this general colour in, but it's going to come down several values to a dark shape, but a greenish hue to it. And of course that goes into the transom, which is a little bit darker, like so, but still has that little bit of greenish influence. in there like so. Maybe a little more than I've allowed for it. Just put a little bit back in there and a little bit back in there, and by doing that I've actually drawn in the rudder. A little bit too light there. Let's come back out with that. Take that out. Put the green, put brown. There you go. In fact, it does get a little bit lighter right on here. It's just picking up a little bit of reflected light there as the back end of the boat itself here goes darker. I'm going to put that in, make that read correctly. Okay, that works. We can put in a very dark bit of blue, bit of umber colour again, and as many colours are, watercolour, acrylics and what have you. Using burnt umber and ultramarine blue make a very good dark, and there are many more little permutations from that you can use. But that's the rudder. It's coming with the same colour but not as wet as I had first time. Let's suggest the edge of the, or top, I don't know what you call this, around the edge of a boat, around the top of a boat, whatever they call it. Let's put that in here now. That to there. Make sure we've got the nice line. Don't want to lose that. And there are slots in it. I think that's, the deck is very, very near to the top, and I think there are little sort of, I don't know, I suppose would they be drainage slots, but I'm going to put a few in, just picking up some light as they go down. They go all the way back actually, there's quite a few of them showing up, just a few suggestive marks. Make a little wedge shape out of my brush, and then I can get those knocked into shape. Alright, let's use our dark now, the one we use for the other sail. Let's just continue this on down, making our sail. Bit of red, bit of the blue and the umber into that red, making a very deep terracotta, if that's the right way of describing it. There's not a lot to see. You're not going to be painting a lot of detail, lots of different forms. And take that out a little bit more. Because you can't see any detail. Taking that all the way through its straight line, because that is part of the pole on the sail. I'm probably saying all these names are totally wrong. If any of you are sailors, I do apologise. You must forgive my ignorance. But I'm going to take that all the way through there and take that like so. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to come in here and put in a lot of darks in here, which we can add lights to further on. But let's just get the darks in place to begin with. And put that all the way in like so. I'm not watching the time, so I have no idea how long we're in. Where are we? Hour and 15. Oh, we're in good shape. Right, now I'm assuming, and I don't know, but I'm assuming these are people that are huddled down in the boat. I don't know. As I said, I really don't know. I'm putting a little bit of a shape to the edge there, so we're using cutout. We're using the edges of dark shapes to work into negative spaces against the light. It just makes it look good, and we get that lovely contrast working. But dark right up on top of the bow there. And we've got that lovely dark in here, which we haven't got too much detail to play with, so we're just going to almost imagining what the heck we can see. A little bit of light there, just a few shadows and stuff going around it, and then whatever it is disappears under one of these sails. So there's only so much I can put into that, and that's all I really will put in. Just going to come in with a real dark statement on this gaff, like so. Looks nice. Little tap off for the beginning of the sail, and then use that reddish version again, and be careful how we place this. Now I think we're going to put it in way up here somewhere. I think somewhere about there, just a little line suggesting the top there, being very careful that we don't change the shape too much. Take a lot of care when you bring your brush down that you don't mess up the edge, and it comes down something like that. I think we're pretty much good. As I think there's sort of, it's just lost the wind out of it, but hopefully I'm right with that thought. There we are. Okay. Now, we've got to play around with these foresails, so let's come in with that colour. I'm going to put a bit more green in. They do need to be a bit darker, so let's put some blue, a bit of red, making a dirty purple, then some of the green in. And let's see where that takes us in terms of dark and light values first. So I think we're probably as dark as that. Really, it's probably too dark if I'm honest. A little bit of yellow into that too, just to give that slight different direction against the blues behind, which tells me almost that the blues behind are a bit too dark, but I don't want to lose that. I want to keep them as they are. Alright, I'm going to take that down through to there, take this down, and then you've got that lovely light part in there. I'm not sure if there's one sail, two sails here, I really don't know. Whether it's one that's just folded, caught a bit of light and is sort of letting some light through. It does look a bit odd, I have to say. Even though I'm not a sailor, I don't think that they have this sort of arrangement naturally occurring, so I'm sure it might be just the condition of the sailing at that point when I took the photo. I know the one that I did of this a few years ago now, and when it was really laying over in the water, and it made for a very, very exciting painting, which I did. And yeah, and when the owner saw it, he said, yeah, he said, I love that. He said, but I got to throw my hands up. He said, I did actually throw it into too much sail going into that turn. That's why it's laying over so heavily. So there you go. Alright. Now it's got too much blue on the end of that. Let's lift some of that off. Just picked up a little bit too much on the brush without realising. And all the way down through to there. Take it down there. Right. There's not a lot I can do with that because I don't honestly know what I'm looking at. There is a dark part, mast pole or something that is there, which I'm going to put that in. One straight line. And there's dark shapes through there. And there's a little bit of rope, and there's a little bit of stuff going on the end of here. So we can use that beautifully into the water, and we can suggest the line coming off the top. If you don't want to draw all the lines in, you don't have to. I seldom do, to be quite honest with you. I need to put in the mast. Now I'm going to have to use my little mole stick, if I can find it very quickly. It says, looking, there it is. Okay, I'm going to use it this way because I just want to put in the dark part here which has been omitted so far. I'm going to take in the edge of the brush this time again. Take that pole all the way down. I said that the mast disappears behind the sail. You lose sight of it. So I'm going to take that all the way up to there, and the little pennant on top. All we're going to put in. Judy, good evening to you. I noticed that you always use vertical and horizontal strokes with your brush. Certain forms in the cloud will suggest use of rotational swirly movements. Is there a reason? Damage to brush? No, no reason at all, Colin. It's just the way I paint them. You can create all sorts. I started putting a few other forms in, but no, I happen to paint the clouds that way. You can do anything you like. I mean, you know, take Van Gogh for instance. I mean, some of his lovely patterns he did in his clouds and his skies were really nothing representing the clouds themselves. They're just the way he painted them, and I think that is fine. It's just how you wish to create that little part of whatever it is you're doing, if that's the right thing. Right, I need to clean my brush. Got a bit dirty because I've got a little bit of repair to do in here, which has gone missing. I'm going to suggest that cloud comes down a little further and down the side of there, like so. Take that up, tidy that up just a tap, and now I'm going to come in and lighten up some of this sail. Bring that across the mast as I was planning, through there, like so. Take that out to there. We've got a nice warm light colour that's running through the bottom end of that light there. Just picking up a glow of light, a little bit of yellow in it. Just taking that down through there. It's picking up some light at that point. It's actually even a little bit warmer than I've suggested. So let's come back in with a deliberate piece of yellow into that, because it looks like it's a bit of cloud and I don't want that to happen. So that works. I'm just going to bring in a few taps this way. There we go. Need to just lighten up that little bit of sky coming into that part of the mast. It just got a little bit wayward on me. I think that is good. There we go. Now what I was also saying, going back to the sky brush marks, Colin, is that I had done it so far and there's nothing stopping me going back in and really refining the clouds to that greater degree. It doesn't really matter. It's just how you want them to look, and as long as they convey the message at the end of the day, then that's fine. Just want to put in a little bit of field shape that I can see up in there. Just mix that with some of the blues. It will lose its orangeness, not a problem. It is a distant shape and colour that I just want to put in and suggest that coming through. That little bit of yellow against the violet also really helps that hill, gotta say. Just one or two areas that are picking up, just lightly glazing over, almost pure spirit and very little paint going in. I'm going to use a little bit on this side too, just to lift the violet out of the blue a little bit. Tap in there, tap in there. Make sure it's about consistent. There. Right, okay. Just come back in. Just saw a little tap that I did wrong there. Right. Now there's a couple of little taps where it's billowing. Maybe this is why I think this has caught the light, lost the wind, because there's a little ripple catching the light in there on that sail. Suggested that it is rippling and it's just sort of misshapen for a short while. Alright, There's a lot of stuff on deck that I have no idea what it is, and there's one thing I have noticed, that look at that, you see my sail comes out here, look at where the boat is, and look at the photo. So for a kick-off, this sail has got to change, or I leave it, one of the two. I have a choice, but I think what I'm going to try and do, this is where it all goes belly up. Let me just take that off. Keep the rag as clean as you can to get the repair going. This is where I'm changing the drawing. I'm going to come back in here with the hill to start with, change the line of this coming down to about there, and that will necessitate other means going on up here. I don't really want to lose that, so I can't do too much, but what I'm going to do is bring that down in a nice soft angle there. I know it's not the right colour, it will be, trust me. There we are. Just going to let that go out a little bit. So you can change your mind. In this case, I suddenly realized that there were errors in my drawing, so I had to shorten the sail to accommodate the boat, otherwise it just wouldn't have worked. I come in here, get rid of that, come back in, find some of that lovely sandy beach again through here, on there, take that through there, underneath, along that line. Okay, now that does travel down under that sail, so let's take that like so. Only so far, not as far as I've suggested. So I'm going to come back in now and do the line this way. I'm going to be quiet because I am just concentrating just a little bit. Just making one or two changes to what you see. Like that. Hopefully that is certainly a lot narrower as a sail. I think we are, may not be perfect, but I think we're not far out of it. More blues into some of these colours. Very grateful that I didn't lose all of the colours. Like so, a bit of a paler one up the back. God, it is my engineer's mind calling out, looking for rules again. Continue to fight it. Yes, I know the one. Just trying to get that about right there. Now I can play around with that. Part of me thinks that I want to, and I'm going to make a further change to what we've been doing because the sail to me is too straight. So I'm going to take that lovely piece of sky out, that lovely cloud, that light and dark, take that out again, and I'm going to come in, having done that, with a new suggested edge to my sail there. Just ever so softly just take that out, and a bit more of a curve to there. Not much, just a little bit. Okay, I think that's a little bit more pleasing, but because of that I've now got to really work on that light, beautiful sunny white clouds. Not necessarily at the point it's where I put mine. Oh, that's a very strong yellow. Probably a bit too strong if I'm honest. I'll come back in. A little bit of liquid went into that. Take that out and let's run that real strong light down through that shape. There we go, and take it out that way. I think we've got a more pleasing cloud, sorry, not necessarily cloud, but more pleasing light and dark and shape to that sail, which was missing, gotta say. Just increase a little bit of light into there, just ever so gently, and then I can come in with a bit of a stronger light there that suggests that cloud that we put the other side comes all the way through and makes its presence felt on this side. There we go. Gently take some of that off. Down through here. Wasn't so much of a repair, it's just a case of changing a decision about the drawing really. But once you do that, then of course you you get committed. Now I'm in danger of overworking that and losing that precious white, which I've done. So I'm just going to come back in there and add a little part of that back in. So trouble when you overwork something, easily lost it. Okay, I'm going to use some of that now, that white, just to bring some of this colour back into play to finish off and complete the edge of that light dark against the sail. Had a little touch more green in it if I remember. Put that in. Okay, right, I'm probably happy with that. I can always check in the cool light of day, but I don't think it's too bad. And I think now we've got something that is more correct for the vessel, which means I can probably put in these two little bits of rope that come down through the back here like that. And I want to get in the sea. This is the last part and we're heading towards 2 hours, so let's crack on. And I want a dark sea. Now I'm going to come in with predominantly the colours that I've been using, which are the blues and the greens, a little bit of the umber. Let's mix some of these together and that makes a very darkish colour. Is it darker than the boat? It doesn't want to be. It wants to be a little lighter than that boat. So let's look at that. I think we're about good to go. So there we are. There's our sea colour. Put a lot of that in all the way through the bottom. Maybe mix up a little bit more. A bit of red into there too. Red's in the umber. So let's utilise that. Let's take that all the way down now. And this is, to me, this is where the fun really begins. And as I said, if I want to start playing around with the sky, I can. The paint will still be wet enough in the morning to really play around with this. So, you know, I know I've used a little bit of liquid in it, which has a quick drying agent within it. But I think that I can still hold out till the morning, have a look at it in the cold light of day if I need to, and add something to the sky. But I'm quite happy that it is what it is. It is going to be okay. I'm just going to pack all this colour all the way up through to here. It's almost like a east or southeast southeast, south-north divide. Something like that. Okay, I'm going to put in one or two other variants of colour just to change it. I don't want it all exactly the same, so I'm just going to scratch through here very liberally, just change the colour and the way it's going. Just in one or two places. Okay, I forget where the tape is. There's the tape there. Paint below that, there's no point. Alright, now then let's have a look. Think, Colin, yeah, Keith, in my humble opinion, it was okay as it was. Changing that has a domino effect. Yeah. Change back again. Lost you for a moment. Oh, okay, you come back. It's out of focus in my eyes. I don't think it's too out of focus. I don't know. It may be a bit crooked, but there you go. Alright, let's just put that down for a moment. Let's come back in with that smaller brush, clean it out, and I'm going to clean off a little bit of palette because I do want to have a nice area to mix on now for this next bit. I really want lots of white, lots of yellow, little, if any, contamination of those colours. So I'm just making a bit of room to put that on. Taking off what I don't need, get rid of it. Okay, I'm going to take out and mix up a lot of this. I'm going to put a bit of the liquid into that so it has a bit more of a mix going on, a bit more fluidity going on. Tap more lemon. Lots of white. I'm going to use lots of it, so you can see me. I'm mixing the way down here with it now. And I'm going to start looking at some of the shapes that are being formed by this water. So I am just going to start ladling in lots and lots of water. I just want to suggest the lights and the darks of the evening. They are quite blobs, not too worried about that. And I know that there are not so many blobs on the painting itself. That's what I might do, and those who know me know what's coming up next. My rigger. Lovely rigger. I can have a lot more fun with this rigger. There we are. Nice. It's quite cool light through the back there, but there's one or two places where it just pop up again. There's a nice couple of highlights on the top of this, whatever that is, cabin. I forgot you were an engineer, Colin. Don't look at this too hard, this boat, would you? You might sort of wonder why it actually is in the water. Alright, there's a little bit of a white colour on the back end of that. Nice and bright on the top here. Take that line all the way straight to there. Nice hard line down the front there, down the bow. Really strong colour. And take that away. I'm tapping around. I'm not looking so much at the waves that are causing these, I'm just tapping. I've got a splitting headache as well. Been one of those days. I think your screen, Judy. Focus is okay for me. Sorry, Judy, must be yours. And I think it's got to be Judy's. Huff on it and give it a polish up, Judy. Ah, no, today I've been doing some heavy gardening work all day. I didn't actually finish until about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I've been had to dig out a path and shovel all the dirt away, get a load of sharp sand in, and as you do. And then I laid 144 paving or block paving brick things. Lots of fun. Not. Few less marks as they come down. You start to see, you don't want to just replace all the dark, the light to the dark, so you need to find a balance. There's a nice little edge of water running down the side there. As the boat's making its way through, it's creating and disturbing the water, which gives you lots of lovely little shapes of nice light colour, especially as that comes off there and over through the back there like so. Bring this on down. And some of my blobs are spreading and getting bigger, but some of them take on a different line too. There we go. Just looking at what I'm doing. Put a few horizontal lines in. Not too many, but there are one or two suggesting wave movement. But they are sort of punctuated with little taps of light on them. Coming down over the tape again, I didn't see it there. So Deborah, coming back to you. Are you going to take up and do some oils, I hope? Having looked at this, don't let what I've done scare you, especially when it goes wrong, but it is forgiving. It really can be great, a lot of fun. Just as long as you give yourself time and the patience to learn and just play around with it. Now I'm not trying to emulate any of these clouds, I'm just, waves, not clouds. I'm just merely trying to suggest the light on the water. There's a nice little light running along there. Just want to try and get some of that in. Try and avoid patterns. I keep saying this, but as humankind we see patterns in everything. We see shapes and forms that we just love it. And why? Because it's got a great pattern. And the thing is that when we paint often or not, we try and not to create a pattern, but invariably we create a pattern. So try as best you can to avoid patterns. Going to leave that light through, that dart through there. I quite like what that's doing. I'm looking at the photo and I'm looking at what I'm painting on the screen, what you're seeing that I'm creating. And I quite like that sort of strip through there. But again, it's one of those. I might look at it tomorrow and think, you know, no, I don't like that at all. And I might actually change that. I hope I haven't missed too many people in the stream tonight. And what I will say is that if any of you are not patrons and fancy looking and getting a little bit more from me, with many more full-length and fully narrated videos on techniques, and not just time lapses but the real thing, start to finish, getting all the information, then maybe take a look at my Patreon and see if something there gets you excited. There are several tiers from $1 through to $25. Most people join at the $5 and $10 value and get access to most, if not all, of my videos. So if that's something that interests you, then yeah, have a look, take a look, and you'll be very, very welcome. We also have a personal patron page on Facebook where you can show and share your work, and everyone has a chat to each other on it, and I comment as much as I possibly can on it for people, and that's all part of that deal. But take a look if you're interested. And don't forget, of course, my Friday films on YouTube for you to all enjoy. They come out each and every Friday. This week is a watercolour, assuming I get it done in time. And yeah, that should be nice, I hope. Hopefully enjoy that. But I pretty much think I'm pretty much done. There are one or two little taps of light up in here which I've missed. I want to put in, there's a little light coming around the top of that there. Denotes that lovely light catching that rail on the top of the boat. Gunwale, I don't know what they call it. Whatever it's called. Forgive me if I've got it wrong. And there's a couple of light bits in there and the front there. Something like that. A little bit of light just underneath there. That works. That just really did work. I quite like that. And I got a little bit of sea out of line here. Just seen it. I'm just going to take that up a little higher there. Take that along there. And once again, I'm going to pop that nice little bit of light in there. Right up onto that sail. And against that bit there. A bit more light. Tight on there. Very, very Conte-jour, as I said. I say this boat is a beautifully coloured boat, icy green, main part of the boat, of course, and the sails are white and beautifully rich terracotta colours when you catch them with the light on them as opposed to behind them. Okay, that light yellow in here, I just want to increase that a little bit more. That's not that much though. it looks a little bit wrong, so I'm just going to play around with that just a bit, just to lose some of it into some of the blue of the sail. Bit more light on it. So it's getting very, very wet, so it's hard to accept too much more, as it were, at this moment. So one of those, you can either rub it back, leave it as is, or wait for it to dry and just add something to it, just as a final little thought. And I want to put a bit more light into this sail here, just a bit more coming down there. Just as though it's catching that light. Just a little glaze colour over the blues. Let it softly disappear into some of it. Maybe a little bit more of the yellow in the top part. Not too much. Easily overdone. Can step too far too quickly. I've got the V shape going the wrong way. Look at that. What a fall. Okay, I've got to change that. Let's make that come out that way a little bit more. And close up the gap at the top. Let's bring that down. It's got too light now. Let's come and change that very, very quickly. The blue. Turn it in. That's an overall better colour on that sail anyway, if I'm honest, at that point. I'm just going to take that all the way to there. Okay, and bit of blue, bit of umber, and this is where you really do want to be careful, because if you're going to put any lines in, then they've got to be about right. And I'm just going to... I'm not going to do that one tonight. I'm going to wait for that to dry, then I can take it off if it's not right. Rather that than get it wrong and wish I hadn't started. I'll put one or two of these other ones in if I want to, just simple lines. There's that little bit of a spark that comes out there. Put that in. I've got a... My old rig has had it, I think, because there's a little bit of a wayward hair just messing that up. Yes, I think I'm going to leave such things as those until another day. So I'm just going to come in with a bit more light there. I think, and pretty much call it a day, I think. So let's see if I can get a bit more light into that. Now, these clouds, do I want to play around with them? Oops, not the sort of concentration you want when your head hurts. No, very true actually. Has solved the problem. It's the focus. I can see it clearly now. And you. Cheers, Judy. That's good. Now you can have nightmares having seen me. Right, now let's see. Do I want to play around with some of these? I might just have a little suggestion of one or two shapes, or do I just leave it as is, because I quite like it as is. I think it says all it needs to do, so I'm going to leave it alone. If I think differently in the morning, I'll let you know on our next stream. But let's just for the moment take off the tape. I've got to be careful because I have had this rip the paper before, but I think it's just nice to take the tape off, get rid of that full of paint, horrible stuff. Take this side off. Take the top one out. Good. And the last one. Marvellous. There you go. Just put a signature on it somewhere. Bit too fluid. There we go. 3 minutes to go to 2 hours. Not a bad evening. Not bad at all. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed doing it. Nice little study. And I think there's just a couple of little things. I keep seeing little things that need doing. There's a nice bit of light over the back there, which is not going to happen with that old brush. Poor thing, knees pointing out to the grass, probably like me. Let's just put that little bit of light, if I can get it to go where I want it. Right there. Okay, there we are. One Conte-jour yacht off the Swale coast. I've had a lot of fun with that. Yeah, thanks guys and girls. As I say, it was just using, this is all about light and dark, contrast. Even some of the colours where they got too blue, I put the complementaries in to kill them, but I can lighten them and darken them accordingly. You know, some of these hill colours were used with oranges, with greens and reds together that neutralise each other's impact and make them darker but colour greys. This is all about the contrast between light and dark, and that's the immediacy, and that's how it works. Thanks, Paul. That, see, it really does thing against the dark boat. Yeah, it's exactly what I was looking to do, and I think it's come off. I keep, as I say, I keep seeing little bits that I want to do. So I put in an extra. I'm gonna wish I hadn't done this, aren't I? A little bit of light extra on some of these down the gun wire, or what do they call that? Extra light. There you go. But yeah, there you go. I hope you learned something from it. I hope you got something from this. Tim, thank you for joining us. Hope to see you again. The next one will be next Monday, and it will be, I'm not sure what it would be. It might be coloured pencils. It might be a watercolour. Unsure. I'll make a decision later on in the week and put it out in good time for everyone to join in. Keith, you finished me. Oh, I don't know. Someone else said that the other day. I can't tell. Oh well. Yeah, I don't know, Keith. I'll have to look into that, mate. Judy's lost the connection again, but says goodbye to everyone. Judy, good evening to you. Thump your grandson. He obviously thought you hadn't got it sorted out, so you'll have to get it sorted out now. But yeah, anyway, there we go, everybody. I do hope you'll join me again next Monday. And don't forget, my Patreons who are watching this tonight, that you've got another stream on Friday. If you want anything in particular, just send me a message on our Facebook community page to let me know what you'd like me to cover, and I'll see if I can accommodate you. That'll be a good way of going forward. So yeah, don't forget that. And I'll see you guys 7 o'clock on Friday. And for those who are not patrons, I'll see you 7 o'clock next Monday, I do hope. Glennis, thank you very much. Look forward to it. JT, nice to see you. No, I'm always losing the plot, but I think I managed to keep a hold of it. No, I enjoyed it. It's all right. It's a good piece. Bit of fun. And yeah, there you go, everybody. And I've just seen something I want to change. Look at that. There's always something. Just want to tickle that bit there down like that. There you go. Always see something. There we are. Anyway, I'll see you all next time. I'll leave the stream on for a few more minutes so people can say cheerio to each other. And I'll catch you all very, very soon. And whatever you're doing, have a look at this painting. I will try and remember to put the reference onto the Patreon. Now, patrons, you'll get the line art and the tonal value as well as the reference. For anybody else, you're free to download the reference photo to use and have a go at. So give me a couple of days and I will try my hardest to make sure it's up there for patrons and non-patrons to use. Sean, good evening to you, mate, and take care. Everybody, stay safe. We're entering a very, very unpredictable time again, it seems. So please, 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 whatever you do, whatever you're doing, do it safely, distance, and all those things. Have fun doing it too. All right. Take care, everybody. I'll catch you all very, very soon. Bye-bye. Let me just do that, Ben, while you're there. Let me just see if I can do that. I could do that and transform and flip horizontally. No, that's the picture I've just done. I didn't mean to do that. Well, there you go. Didn't mean to do that. So let's Control Z that one. Wait, let's go back in and reset transform. Oh my lord, what have I done now? I'm going all over the shop. Transform vertically. Forgive me, everybody. This is fun. We could be here for another hour doing this. Horizontally. Make that bigger. But then how do I do me? I thought that's what I was doing. Now then, will that do that? Transform. Yes, there we are. I think I got it, Ben. So I think I'm now the right way round. Forgive all the shenanigans with the screen, but I do think I actually got it. So those of you who are saying I was wrong way round, am I now the right way round? Are you still there, Ben? Have I done it? I think I have. Right. Good. Okay, I'll have to watch that next time. I can't actually see that I'm the wrong way round because my little picture is so small. I don't see it full screen. I only see a very, very small version of what you're seeing. Okay, guys, I'm going to end the stream now. We're over the 2 hours plus, so take care. Catch you all very, very soon. Look forward to your company Monday, Friday, Wednesday, whether you're YouTube, patron, or students at the gallery. See you all soon.